Hey everybody, it's Cauliflower here, and I'm bringing you guys another video on cryptocurrencies. So in today's video, we're going to talk about something that I find very interesting, but it might be like not the most interesting thing for the average viewer to watch. I only say this because I'm talking about technology that doesn't exist. And so it's going to be a little bit hard for me to speak about it. And if you don't already have a solid grasp of cryptocurrencies, this video is probably not for you. Even if you do have a solid grasp of cryptocurrencies, it might be hard for you to understand. Some of that is just because it's hard for me to, sort of talk about, I guess, just because it's hard to find the right words because I'm talking about something that doesn't exist and trying to, design something that doesn't exist. So I'm just throwing that out there in the beginning. But this video, I'm focusing on scaling on the blockchain. So everybody who watches this probably knows that Bitcoin Lightning is coming out soon. My problem with Bitcoin Lightning is that if Bitcoin is used globally and they use the Bitcoin Lightning network, I think it's only 1 out of every 10,000 transactions will be broadcast on the blockchain. So I don't really like that. Obviously, like Bitcoin Lightning, it's way superior to what Bitcoin is today. So if Bitcoin Lightning is the only answer, then yes, go ahead with Bitcoin Lightning all the way. Even if it's not the only answer, it's way better than what we've got now, so we should go ahead with it anyways. But the question still remains, can you scale a blockchain globally and keep all the transactions on the blockchain? Because if Bitcoin goes to Bitcoin Lightning, websites like blockchain.info will become meaningless. Like, I don't know how many times I've used blockchain.info. It's a great site. It lets you track your transactions. Like, it's absolutely beautiful, and I love it. But Bitcoin Lightning comes out, blockchain.info, it's no longer valid. It won't show you your transactions, so there's no purpose for it. So I don't like things like that. But anyways, the question still remains, how would you scale a blockchain globally and keep all the transactions on that blockchain? And I talked about this a little bit in my video. I called it Bitcoin Cash, scaling Bitcoin Cash globally, something like that. But anyways, I wanted to talk about this just in general because, I know a lot of people probably didn't watch it because I was talking about Bitcoin Cash. I'm not the biggest fan of Bitcoin Cash. I think it's interesting to watch. I already made that video. There were 3 to buy. The one that was interesting to watch was Bitcoin Cash. I think it's interesting to watch. I have a lot of Bitcoin Cash because I owned a lot of Bitcoin when Bitcoin Cash came out. So, I'm not planning on selling it right now. I'm not planning on buying any either. But I wanted to talk about scaling a blockchain globally just for any sort of blockchain. And so how would you do this? And I want to go into a little bit more detail too. But how would you do this? So the first question that you have, or I guess how I would do this, I guess, before I get to this first question, but is you would separate a blockchain into separate parts. So obviously one blockchain used globally, it's way too big for all the users. So can you separate the blockchain into smaller parts and have users only download a certain part of that blockchain? The answer is yes. The question is, can it be done fluidly? Because one of the problems is coordinating a separated blockchain. So that's the first question. How do you coordinate a separated blockchain? So what I mean by that is, if the blockchain is separated into parts, like let's say you separate a blockchain into 2 halves, you would still need both blockchains synced up. Like, you can't have one half synced up and then the other half not synced up. Like, they have to be working together. They're separate, but they have to be working together. So how do you ensure that this works? And how do you make sure also that every user can still look at all their transactions? Because if you separate the blockchain into parts, you still have to make sure that each user downloads the blockchain that keeps all their transactions. So how do you coordinate all of this with a separated blockchain? Well, the quick answer is that you actually predetermine which transactions people will download. Now, for a lot of people, they'll think, oh man, that's terrible for your privacy. That's not what I mean. Okay, you can separate transactions in a logical way without learning about anything or without learning about the users or their transaction not numbers, but how big their transactions are. The way you do this is you will actually separate the blockchain based on wallet IDs. Okay, and so each user will only download certain transactions, and the way you would do it if you separated a blockchain based on wallet IDs is with a Bitcoin wallet, you use 26 letters and 10 digits. For anybody who's out there actually watching, technically speaking, they take away the capital O, the 0, the lowercase l and the uppercase I do believe, because those look identical when they're typed into a computer keyboard, so they took those out. That was a great decision by them, but I'm not going to keep talking about that. Like, when I talk about this, I'm not going to mention that every time. just because it'll really confuse things. But the way you separate a blockchain based on wallet IDs is you would just say use a percentage, or you would create a ratio by using the unique characters in each wallet ID. So what I mean by that is, let's say you wanted to separate a blockchain in half. Well, we all know there's 26 characters in a blockchain, or 26 letters that are used in the wallet ID, right? So if you wanted to cut those in half, there's also uppercase and lowercase. So you would say if a wallet, or if a transaction comes from a wallet that starts with an uppercase letter or the digits 0 through 4, that'll go on blockchain A. If the transaction starts with a lowercase letter or the digits 5 through 9, that'll go on blockchain B. And so that's just the basic idea. Now the good thing is that you've got a huge number of characters in each wallet address. I'm pretty sure it's 34 characters per address. So depending on how small of a ratio you want to separate the blockchain into, like, you can easily do it just by keeping on changing those, not the ratios, but I guess the algorithm that determines which transactions go onto which blockchain. Now, for anybody who really knows blockchains and cryptocurrencies, you're going to listen to this and you're going to be like, look, Cauliflower Man, you're an idiot. Blockchain bloat doesn't have anything to do with wallet IDs. It has to do with transactions, and that's true. So just separating the blockchain based on wallet IDs is not enough. The other thing that would have to happen is they would have to limit the wallet users' transactions on each part of the blockchain. So that's that final point right there. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, you cannot have all of the exchanges using one half of the blockchain, because then all of the blockchain bloat is on that part of the blockchain. So they have to be somewhat separated. So this wouldn't be an issue for small-time users. It would only be something that massive exchanges would have to deal with. So if you're a big-time exchange, you might have to use multiple parts of the blockchain. So if the blockchain split in two, you might actually have to use both parts. But the good thing about this is, because people will be like, oh, that's not good for exchanges. Well, these exchanges, they already have big servers and stuff, so like it's not any more cost to them if they were to have to use two different halves of a blockchain. Even if that blockchain is bigger than what the current Bitcoin blockchain is, they can easily handle it. And the second thing is they're the ones who have to pay a huge amount in transaction fees. So like they're not going to mind doing a little extra work in order to get rid of these transaction fees. They won't give a shit at all. So yes, for someone like a massive Bitcoin exchange, they might have to download multiple parts of this blockchain, so it'll be a little extra work for them, but I don't think they're really going to care. The fourth point right there, you might also require dedicated servers if you split the blockchain into parts. You really shouldn't, and I say you shouldn't need dedicated servers because if you watch my Bitcoin Cash video, when you do the math, no matter how much you split up the blockchain, so long as it's used at its max capacity, you have 800,000 blockchains downloaded totally amongst all your users. So even if you split the blockchain into 1,000 pieces, as long as you're using the blockchain to the max of its capacity, that there's going to be 800,000 full blockchains once you put those 1,000 pieces together. So there's a lot of redundancy there. So the one thing that a separated blockchain requires is each part of the blockchain has to have at least one node that is fully synced up and fully downloaded. So if you have a redundancy of 800,000 blockchains, that's not really something that would probably matter. That being said, if any part of the blockchain isn't synced up, then the blockchain isn't going to work. So you might want to have dedicated servers just because it might be a good idea, but technically speaking, you wouldn't need them whatsoever. Or you probably wouldn't need them. So let's go ahead and talk about these points individually. Again, how do you coordinate the separated blockchain? That's the big question. So we've already talked about these answers a little bit. Can the separated blockchain work as a whole? Yes, so long as it's designed correctly. Again, you separate the blockchain based on wallet IDs. So every transaction coming from a specific wallet ID is on one part of the blockchain. And the other thing about this, because people think they think that's kind of confusing, all you would do is if we're going to use this for like Bitcoin, right now if you download the Bitcoin wallet, the Bitcoin Core wallet, it's just one wallet. If you separated the blockchain into halves, then you would have a Bitcoin Core A wallet and a Bitcoin Core B wallet, and that's all it would be. So you would either download the Bitcoin Core A wallet or the Bitcoin Core B wallet, and it would really be that simple. So it's not like this is some super complex thing. It's just you would have multiple Bitcoin wallets for the same blockchain. So it would be a little bit different, but it's not like it's something really hard to imagine. Can users still know that the whole blockchain exists? Yes, and this is very simple actually. You don't have to download the full blockchain in order to know that somebody else has downloaded and verified the blockchain. So all you would have to do is link up to another node, somebody else on the network, and then they could send you, like somebody else who has the other blockchain downloaded. So again, if we go back to our example where you split Bitcoin in two and you have the Bitcoin Core A wallet and Bitcoin Core B wallet, if you have the Bitcoin Core A wallet, all you have to do is link up to somebody with the Bitcoin Core B wallet, and all you would do is you would be like, hey, this would all be done obviously through computer code, but your node would just contact their node and be like, hey, have you downloaded your part of the blockchain and is it legit? And they would just send back a yes or no, and it'd be that simple. And because you have so many nodes, you could just be checking all the time. And again, you don't have to trust just one node. You could be asking all the nodes that you could. And if one node had any sort of problem, then that could shut the whole thing down or whatever. But so it's really simple. Again, all you have to do is separate the blockchain and then ask another node, hey, did you download that part of the blockchain and is it legit? So you don't actually have to see the blockchain, because this is something that I talked about in my Bitcoin Cash video, is that you don't need to know you don't need all the details of every transaction. You just need to know that someone has seen it, like that someone has seen it and it's legitimate. I made the analogy in my Bitcoin Cash video. It's like if you were trying to test a river for pollutants. You don't test the whole river. You take a sample. And so if you separate the blockchain, it's like taking a sample of the blockchain. You take a small sample of the blockchain, and then you just make sure other people are taking samples, and then if somebody ever gets a bad sample, then you know something's up. But if nobody ever has a bad sample, then you're fine. So that's how a separated blockchain would basically work. And then can users still check other parts of the blockchain? And what I mean by that is, would something like blockchain.info still work? Yes, it would. They would just be able to download all the transactions from each part of the blockchain. Again, that would require a server on them, but I guarantee you blockchain.info already has servers. Okay, they already have servers, and adding a couple more wouldn't really cost them all that much money. So it's not like it's something that is completely cost prohibitive. It's really not whatsoever. Again, users download only certain transactions, so you're only downloading that partial transaction or partial blockchain. But the one thing that you have to remember about this, so if you're only downloading a partial blockchain, in order for it to work for you as a user, that partial blockchain must include all of your own user transactions. That's what the X stands for, is transactions. So whatever part of the blockchain you download, all of your transactions have to occur on that blockchain, because if they don't, then you would send out a transaction. It would still work, but you wouldn't have access to it. And again, the whole reason of separating these blockchains is so that you still can see all of your transactions, even if you don't see all the transactions on the blockchain. So your transactions have to be on the blockchain that you download. And again, this goes back to why I said if you're doing it for Bitcoin, it'd be like you just have multiple Bitcoin Core wallets. It'd be Bitcoin Core A wallet, Bitcoin Core B wallet, and whichever, if you're using Bitcoin Core B wallet, then all of your transactions would be on that blockchain. So it just makes it pretty simple. And then again, the last point, the blockchains must be downloaded equitably, and all I mean is that the bloat must be split evenly amongst all of the blockchains. So you can't have one exchange, or you can't have every single Bitcoin exchange on one part of the blockchain, because if you do that, then you completely overload the entire system, and then that blockchain is going to have massive bloat. Now, that being said, if you actually designed a certain core wallet, like if you designed one part of the blockchain specifically to be used by exchanges and they didn't mind having a huge blockchain because they've already got big servers so they can handle it, like maybe they could do that. But if you just wanted to do it in a more simple way where you don't have to get the consent of the exchanges to use a big blockchain, you would just make sure that each blockchain has limited transactions. But these separate blockchains, again, they're separated by wallet ID characters. So in this slide, I'm actually going to show you what a Bitcoin wallet looks like. That first point is a Bitcoin wallet, so it's just a random string of letters and numbers. I don't know how random it is. I know certain cryptocurrencies, they will have one letter or one number always be the first letter or number. So if that's the case, obviously you don't pay attention to that. Again, the way this separated blockchains idea would work is you would only generate wallets with a wallet address that would be on your blockchain again. So if we had Bitcoin separated into Bitcoin Core A and Bitcoin Core B, let's say Bitcoin Core A had all the capital letters, like any Bitcoin transaction that came from a wallet that had a capital letter as the first character, or the digits 0 through 4. That would be Bitcoin Core A, and then Bitcoin Core B would be any transaction coming from a wallet address that had a lowercase letter or the digits 5 through 9 as the first character. So obviously this one has a 1, so in that scenario this would be on the Bitcoin Core A blockchain. So again, you can separate these blockchains by the characters used. So there's 58 unique characters. Like I said, they don't use the 0, the capital O, the lowercase l, or the capital I, and that's just because they look very similar, so they didn't want anybody screwing that up if you typed in a Bitcoin address yourself. And there's 34 characters in each address, so you can easily, by just, or if you think of the number of permutations that are there with 58 unique characters and a 34 character address, it doesn't matter how small you want to separate the blockchain, like how small of parts you want to separate the blockchain into, you can do it. I'm not going to do the math here, but I think you could separate it into trillionths of like if you wanted to separate the blockchain into 1 trillionth of a blockchain, you could easily do it. I bet you could do it for like near 1 Google. Like that's a huge amount of permutations that you've got right there. But anyways, moving on to our 5th slide here. This is the one where I said if you did separate a blockchain, you might need dedicated servers in order for it to function. All I mean by this is like for a blockchain to function, it has to be completely synced up. That's very easy for something like Bitcoin when there's only one blockchain. All that means is that as soon as like nobody's using Bitcoin, then the blockchain isn't synced up, so it doesn't work. But there's always people using Bitcoin. That's the miners right now who are always using it. And I guess one way you could potentially get around this requiring dedicated servers is if you had miners always on different parts of the blockchain. So this might not even be necessary, but again, you would only want servers to ensure that the blockchain is always synced. So this isn't even a big issue. It's not even hard to do. And if it was necessary, you could pay them a very small block reward. And I know people are going to be like, oh, if you have to pay them more block reward, that's more of a cost, so Bitcoin Lightning is better. It's like, well, Bitcoin Lightning, you actually pay a cost to the nodes that run Bitcoin Lightning, so the cost would be the same. And then this final slide here, this is the one thing that you have to remember, is that just separating Bitcoin blockchain by wallet addresses is not enough, because the bloat isn't caused by the wallet address, it's caused by the transactions. So you would have limits on each part of the blockchain, and let's say maybe you could only have 100,000 transactions a day. So that would be a limit that would matter for big exchanges, but it wouldn't matter for anybody else. And so then these big exchanges would have to use multiple blockchain parts, but everybody else would be able to use their own, just use one part of the blockchain. So again, yeah, these high volume addresses for exchanges, they've got to be separated. So again, that would just be really simple. But anyways, this is my idea, or I mean, I guess you can say it's my idea. This is sort of the idea that I have for solving blockchain bloat on the blockchain itself. Again, I'm not a programmer, so this might be a lot harder to do than I'm making it seem. But I feel like if I can come up with an idea for it, other people could too. I do like Bitcoin Lightning. I'm just saying, if you can scale Bitcoin globally without using Bitcoin Lightning and keep all the transactions on the blockchain, that would be superior. There's no one who can argue it wouldn't be. The blockchain is what built Bitcoin, and so they're kind of moving away from it, which again, Bitcoin Lightning is way better than the Bitcoin we have today. But is it the best thing out there? I don't think so. So you guys can let me know what you think in the comments below. But as always, there will be more videos coming here soon.